I believe the mayor has a few recognitions. Mayor, call on you, please, sir.
Thank you, Mr. President. I appreciate it. We have about a 4 or 5 year tradition now of recognizing our employees that have reached a milestone beginning with the 25 years of service, and we have 3 here tonight. And I'd like to invite Matina Johnson to come up, who's with our library. Matina, hello. Matina's here with her husband, Keith, and Mom, Margaret. Welcome, both of you. So Matina is with our library, our wonderful library. Just stand up there so all can view that wonderful smile that you have. Matina started here in 1996 as a library box office clerk, and then she moved up, started just moving up the ranks there. And in 1998, she was promoted, but I think the one that she likes the most is the fact she became the fine arts coordinator in 2001. And boy, has she shined as that in that position, and really taking our little library theater to a fabulous theater here in Hoover, but through the metro area. Just done an incredible job. We get world-class performance acts there, and it's because of Matina and her hard work and just her knowledge of the industry, and just is so much fun to go and attend those events. When will we get our next one? We're all anxious. Are we close? Okay, very soon. So we've had some incredible acts there. Ricky Skaggs, Indigo Girls, Lonely Boys, Deanna Carter, Black Jacket Symphony. Those are pretty nice acts there to get in our little theater of about 250 so patrons. And it's because of her great negotiation skills and her personality and knowing who to call and when to call. That's why we get great acts like that. And then they get here and they see what a wonderful little theater it is, and they recommend it to others. So we can hand that off completely to Matina. And you can see what a wonderful smile she has, because she is an absolute joy to work with. She's a wonderful person, and we love her very much. And we listen to her, and one day we're going to have that great big theater, and you're going to be so much a part of it. We can't wait. Thank you so much for your service. And next, 25 years of service in the fire department, Captain Barry Key. Barry is going to come down and join us. Got a little injury there. He's here with his wife Tracy and son Clay, and his mother and father Judy and Barry Key, daughter and son-in-law Amber and Jim Bob Jones, and grandchildren Barrett and Alice Jones. I didn't know you had grandbabies. Congratulations, good for you. And mother-in-law Sherry Hartman. So Barry came to Hoover Fire Department in 1996 as a firefighter and was assigned after rookie school. He went to Fire Station 2, and he has worked his way up the ranks now he is a district captain, the highest ranking operational position in the fire department, and just does a great job. Barry's just a very fine man, a very fine individual, a solid citizen, we like to say. But one of his assets is that he's extremely smart, and we call on him a lot when we have different situations that we want to work our way through. And one of the things that he's done is he manages our fire department rehab program. And you go to these scenes like we had the other night. John, you were there at that big apartment fire, and it was hot, and people, firefighters run out of energy just like everybody else. And you got to have a program in place to take care of your folks while they're on the scene there. And that's the part of the department that he manages as well. So we appreciate his leadership and all that he does for the city of Hoover, and we look forward to you making your next 25 years here. Thank you so much.
Yes, ma'am, please. That would be wonderful.
I'm glad. I thought all the folks were coming first. And last but not least is Curtis Jones. Curtis, come down. Curtis is here with his wife, Jamie, and your daughter, Lindy, here. Yeah, there she is. Okay, good to see you. Curtis has reached his 25th year with the city of Hoover. He came to us from the city of Birmingham. And I'll tell you, I remember the day he was hired, and the city of Birmingham Fire Department, they were in depression that day because he's that kind of guy. I had many of them tell me the best man on the Birmingham Fire Department was Curtis Jones. And that's pretty good. They got like, 800 folks? And I'll tell you what, Barry, I love you. Best man on Hoover Fire Department. Just an absolute fine individual, but he's so talented in the technical skills that are required for firefighters today. He leads our technical rescue service. He's on the SWAT team, where we have firefighters that are paramedics that team up with our police department SWAT team, and they go in the hot zone right there with the police officers when they're dealing with those very difficult situations. But he's just a great firefighter, technically sound all across the board, paramedic skills. He can do just about anything. But the most important thing, he's a humble, hard worker. He's just a great person. When young men and women want to be mentored in the fire service, this is the guy you want to be talking to you. So we're so proud that he left a great fire department in Birmingham Fire and Rescue Service and came to an even greater one. He's been here 25 years. Thank you so much. All right, so thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mayor. Those of you who are regularly with us will notice we do not have a consent agenda tonight. The council did not gather on Thursday evening for a work session. Therefore, we will take a little bit more time with each of these items as we call on the various department heads who are responsible for each item. We'll begin with item number 6, approval of the minutes. Mr. Corley.
This approves the minutes for the May 19th, 2021 special called meeting, May 25th, 2021 special called meeting, the May 27th, 2021 special called meeting, the June 1st special called meeting, the June 3rd special called meeting, and the June 3rd work session and June 7th meeting.
Mr. President, I move for approval of the minutes without reading.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any questions or comments from the members? Any questions or comments from members of the public? Hearing and seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Item number 7, resolution number 647621, Mr. Corley.
This resolution authorizes Mayor Brocato to execute a renewal agreement with Alliant Property Insurance for stop-loss insurance.
Mr. President, I move for approval of resolution number 6476-2.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Ms. Carrier is here. Ms. Carrier, would you mind coming down and sharing with us a little bit about this item? I know Sammy Harris and Amanda Roy also from Risk Management are here. Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you, Mr. President. So this resolution is an item to renew our current property insurance with Alliant Insurance Services. We've been with them for 8 years. This would be our 9th year, and it has a broad coverage that includes cyber liability, earthquake, flood damage. It's property for our buildings, our high-risk automobiles, inland marine, and it also has our sales tax interruption coverage. And so you may be aware the property insurance market is a very hard market right now with all of the natural disasters going on in our country with floods. And so there is an increase this year, but we do recommend renewing with Alliant. They've been good coverage for us. And Sammy Harris is here with Insurance Office of America if you have any questions.
Very good. Any questions from the members? Any questions from members of the public? We have a motion and a second for approve the resolution. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and the motion carries. Item number 8 is resolution number 647721, Mr. Corley.
This resolution authorizes Mayor Brocato to execute an agreement with Global Aviation Insurance for unmanned aircraft insurance.
Mr. President, I move for approval of resolution number 6477-21.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Ms. Carrier?
Yes, sir. This is insurance for our police drones that we have. We have 6 drones, and this provides $5 million worth of liability coverage. We did move, it's not a renewal. Sammy was able to expand the market, and he found a savings for going with this company, Global Aerospace. But we do believe the coverages are comparable, and we are recommending that we move with this new company.
I'm glad you specified drones. When I heard unmanned aircraft, that sounded a little more severe than drones. Any questions from the members on this item? Any questions from members of the public? Hearing and seeing none, we have a motion and have a motion for approval and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and the motion carries. Item number 9, resolution number 647821, Mr. Corley.
This resolution authorizes Mayor Brocato to execute a renewal agreement with Hartford Crime Insurance.
Mr. President, I move for approval of resolution number 6478-21.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Ms. Carrier.
Yes, sir. Thank you. This is a renewal insurance agreement with Hartford Fire Insurance. They provide our crime insurance. It's protection against employee theft, credit card forgery, counterfeit charges. And it also provides the $2.5 million worth of insurance coverage for the E911 communications district that's required by the state.
Very good. Any questions for Ms. Carrier on this resolution? Any questions from members of the public? Hearing and seeing none, we have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay. The ayes have it. The motion carries. Thank you, Ms. Carrier.
Thank you.
Item number 10 is resolution 647921, Mr. Corley.
This resolution authorizes Mayor Brocato to execute a renewal agreement with Shelby County, Alabama.
Mr. President, I move for approval of resolution number 6479-21.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Mr. Reeves, welcome.
Thank you, sir. This is an MOU
with Shelby County for additional work associated with the Inverness Greenway project. The funds for this additional work are currently budgeted.
Very good. Any questions for Mr. Reeves? Any questions or comments from the public? Hearing and seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay. Ayes have it, and the motion carries. Item number 11 is Resolution 6480-21. Mr. Corley.
This resolution accepts the bid of Standard Roofing for the re-roofing of Fire Station 2 and the bid of Tecta America for the re-roofing of Fire Station 4 pursuant to bid number 21-005, and authorizes the mayor to enter into an agreement with Standard Roofing for such work at a total not to exceed $183,000, and an agreement with Tecta America for a total not to exceed $120,055.
Mr. President, I move to continue resolution number 6480-21.
Second. I have a motion and a second to continue. Is that to a date specific, Mr. Posey?
To the call of the chair.
Okay. Have a motion and a second. For members, that's my understanding the bids have come in a little unexpectedly high, so we want to go back and do a little work on that. Very good. Any questions from the members on that item? Any questions from the public? Hearing and seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay. The ayes have it, and the resolutions continue. Item number 12 is Resolution 6481-21. Mr. Corley.
This This resolution declares a weed and other vegetation nuisance at the address listed in the resolution and directs the abatement thereof pursuant to Alabama law.
Mr. President, I move for the approval of resolution number 6481-21.
Second. We have a motion and second. Mr. Mack, I know you presented these items to us at our last meeting. Any change on any of these? I think we have some photos in front of us.
Yes, sir. You have the photo for 905 Shady Brook Circle. It's a vacant lot, and it's as shown. That photo was taken today. So it does need to be abated after y'all's vote today.
Okay. Any questions for Mr. Mack? Mr. Mack, is that the only item under this resolution?
That's the only abatement.
Okay. Very good.
You also have a public nuisance.
Gotcha. Okay.
The 6481 is for 1613 Russet Crest Circle, 239 Russet Woods Drive, 1728 Russet Woods Lane, 3413 Big Paul Circle, and 3688 Guyton Road. And this will be declaring.
Okay.
This isn't the abatement one.
This is not the, okay, this, the only one that we have on there is 1613 Russet Crest Circle. The other four have been taken care of. So this is the first where y'all voted, declared a public nuisance. And the photo was taken today, and this is the first hearing on this one as a public nuisance.
Declaring. Gotcha.
Yes.
Okay. Want to make sure that's clear to the members. Any questions for Mr. Mack or Ms. Dickerson on that item?
Mr. President,
Yes, sir.
905 Shady Brook.
905 Shady Brook will be an abatement later in the agenda, correct, Madam Clerk? Yes, sir. It'll be next.
Gotcha, okay. I see-
It's 646921, so
Number
it's
15.
it's
it's
several
on, it's a
down.
part of this, right?
It'll be on number 15.
Gotcha, okay,
Yes.
gotcha.
Any other questions from the members on that item? Any questions from members of the public? Hearing and seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and the motion carries. Item number 13 is Resolution 6482-21. Mr. Corley.
This resolution approves a report of costs in the amount of $395 for the removal of weeds at 1139 Camelot Circle, Hoover, Alabama 35226, owned by Rick Arnold.
Mr. President, I move for approval of resolution number 6482-21.
Second. We will now have a public hearing. Open the public hearing by asking members of the body if they have any questions or comments about this item. Are there any questions or comments for or against this item from members of the public? Hearing and seeing none, we will close the public hearing, and I'll ask for a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and the motion carries. Item number 14 is Resolution number 648321. Mr. Corley.
This resolution authorizes the mayor to enter into a service agreement with the Hoover Area Chamber of Commerce for services to be performed for the city of Hoover during Hoover Restaurant Week, occurring the week of July 23rd, 2021 through August 1st, 2021.
Mr. President, I move for approval of resolution number 6483-21.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Ms. Herrera Bast is here from the Chamber of Commerce. Ms. Herrera Bast, would you like to come down and share a little bit about Restaurant Week with us and what we're being asked to consider, please?
Thank you very much for having us tonight. I also have a couple members of the board with me today. This resolution is for Restaurant Week. We have a collaboration between the Chamber as well as the Restaurant Alliance here in Hoover to promote the restaurants within the Hoover food scene. And we have a great committee as well that is going to be a part of this, that is helping us plan for it. We are inviting over 125 restaurants, all who hold licenses here in the city of Hoover. There is no charge for the restaurants to participate. However, if they do see an increase in their profits during that time, we are asking them to make a donation, whatever quantity they'd like to make, for Hoover Helps. Like I mentioned, the restaurants are really excited, and we hope that it'll grow from this point forward. And we are also we're collaborating with the One Hoover Pledge, which is shopping locally, which was part of Leadership Hoover. We have an estimated $10,000 budget, which is primarily being spent on advertising.
Very good. Any questions for Ms. Herrera Bast?
Mr. President, I would just add, this is the first time the Chamber has participated in something like this with a Restaurant Week.
Yes, sir.
Well, that's cool to see the Chamber doing something like this, and a lot of people will be happy to see you doing that. So thank you all for taking this initiative.
Thank you, Mr. Shaw. Any other questions or comments? Any questions or comments from members of the public? We have a motion and second for approval of the resolution. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and the motion carries. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Item number 15 is Resolution 6469-21. Mr. Corley.
This resolution declares a weed and other vegetation nuisance at 905 Shady Brook Circle, Hoover, Alabama, and directs the abatement thereof pursuant to Alabama law.
Mr. President, I move for approval of resolution number 6469-21.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Mr. Mack, I think you've already spoken a little bit about this item.
Yes, sir. This is the one I mentioned earlier. This one is the one up for abatement, 905 Shady Brook Circle. It's the vacant lot, and the photo is accurate, up to date.
Any questions or comments? Was this the only address we had?
For abatement, yes, sir.
Arnold Road is not an abatement yet?
No, sir. That one's coming up. You're going to have the first reading in the July, and then you'll have the second reading, the second meeting of July, I believe is correct.
Very good, very good. Any other questions for Mr. Mack?
One, Mr. President.
Yes, sir.
This is, I think we've seen this address before. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. You've seen it, and it has been cut before. It's been abated before by the city. So I did have a call today. The new owner of just a month got in contact with me. I'm hoping he'll come in, but we need to go ahead and vote for abatement, just in case he fails on that.
Sure.
So,
That'd be great. Thank you.
yes, sir.
Any other questions for Mr. Mack?
One, Mr. President.
Yes, sir.
How are we doing on recoveries on these? Because I know, are we doing pretty well on getting the money back when we do this?
Yes, we are.
Okay, thank you.
Any questions or comments from the public? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. The ayes have it, the motion carries. Item number 16 is ordinance number 21-2527. Mr. Corley.
This ordinance rezones 1873 Mayflower Lane to Hoover R2 Single Family Residential District.
Mr. President, I move for adoption of ordinance number 21-2527.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. We will now hold a public hearing on the item. We'll open the hearing by asking members of the body if they have any questions or comments on this item. Are there any members of the public who would like to speak for or against the item? Hearing and seeing none, we will close the public hearing. We have a motion and a second for adoption of the ordinance. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. Posey?
Aye.
Mr. Sweeney?
Aye.
Mr. Shaw?
Aye.
Mr. Murphy?
Aye.
Dr. Middlebrooks?
Aye.
Mr. McClinton?
Aye.
Mr. Lyda?
Aye. With 7 ayes, 0 nays, the ordinance is adopted. Item number 17 is ordinance number 21-2528. Mr. Corley.
This ordinance rezones 1868 Wisterwood Drive to Hoover R1 Single Family Residential District.
Mr. President, I move for adoption of ordinance number 21-2528.
Second.
Have a motion and a second for adoption of the ordinance. We will now hold a public hearing and open the hearing by asking members of the body if they have any questions or comments. We had a first reading at our last meeting on this item where Mr. Martin came and shared with us. No changes, Mr. Martin, from the original presentation. Any questions or comments from members of the public? Seeing none, we will close the public hearing. We have a motion and second for adoption of the ordinance. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. Posey?
Aye.
Mr. Sweeney?
Aye.
Mr. Shaw?
Aye.
Mr. Murphy?
Aye.
Dr. Middlebrooks?
Aye.
Mr. McClinton?
Aye.
Mr. Lyda?
Aye, that's 7 ayes, 0 nays. Motion carries and the ordinance is adopted. Item number 18 is ordinance number 21-2529. Mr. Corley.
This ordinance rezones 2316 Teton Road to Hoover E2 Single Family Estate District.
Mr. President, I move for adoption of ordinance number 21-2529.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. We will now open a public hearing for consideration of the item. Any questions or comments from members of the body on this item?
Mr. President,
Yes, sir.
one quick question, Maggie, just very brief on this. Is it two units on this property?
I'm not familiar with there being 2 units on this particular piece of property. This, looks like we do have an outbuilding.
Is one residence, two pieces, detached assets? Like,
Yeah, I'm not familiar with there being an additional residence on this site.
One family usually, one related family.
I'll be glad to verify if you want to.
yeah,
Mr. President, if I could ask, what is it currently zoned? Is it R1 stuff or?
Let's see.
Because this was one for the setbacks, right? Or was it?
Well, this particular location is completely surrounded by E2 zoned property within the city of Hoover.
Okay.
The zoning of the property would be in continuation with the zoning for the rest of the neighborhood.
Right. As I was trying to recall what the reason was for the requested zoning of the state, but that makes sense if it's consistent with what's around it. So, but I guess in answer to Mr. Murphy's question, it can be, or Councilman Murphy's question, it can only be one, this is a single-family zoning, correct? So,
That's correct. It could not be subdivided.
okay.
Mr. President, that's all I'm good.
Very good. Any other questions or comments from the members? Any questions or comments from members of the public? Seeing none, we will close the public hearing. We have a motion and a second. I would ask the clerk call the roll, please.
Mr. Posey?
Aye.
Mr. Sweeney?
Aye.
Mr. Shaw?
Aye.
Mr. Murphy?
Aye.
Dr. Middlebrooks?
Aye.
Mr. McClinton?
Aye.
Mr. Lyda?
Aye, that's 7 ayes, 0 nays. The motion carries and the ordinance is adopted. Item number 19 is ordinance number 21-2530. Mr. Corley.
This ordinance rezones 3734 Spearman Drive to Hoover R1 Single Family Residential District.
Mr. President, I move for adoption of ordinance number 21-2530.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. We'll now open a public hearing and ask members of the body if they have any questions or comments on this item. Any questions or comments from members of the public? Hearing none, we will close the public hearing. We have a motion and a second. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. Posey?
Aye.
Mr. Sweeney?
Aye.
Mr. Shaw?
Aye.
Mr. Murphy?
Aye.
Dr. Middlebrooks?
Aye.
Mr. McClinton?
Aye.
Mr. Lyda?
Aye. Again, 7 ayes, 0 nays. Motion carries and the ordinance is adopted. Item number 20 is Resolution 646821. Mr. Corley.
This resolution grants a conditional use for a pet grooming and boarding facility with outdoor runs, play areas to include on-site veterinary care and residential quarters for 24-hour on-site caretaker, subject to the conditions attached as Exhibit 2 to the resolution, and approves the site plan for the property located on Tattersall Boulevard at the corner of Greystone Way.
Mr. President, I move for approval of resolution number 646821.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Once again, we will have a public hearing. We'll open that hearing now and ask Mr. Martin to come forward. I know we have some guests. Mr. Beavers is here to answer any questions and perhaps present. I know there was a request last time, Mr. Beavers, for some clarification on one item. Mr. Martin?
Yes, Mr. President, tonight we have the second reading of this conditional use. You'll recall at the last meeting, we modified the conditions that were placed on this and had a first reading for those new conditions. The first being that no animals be outside after 7 p.m. or before 6:30 a.m. Landscaping and fencing must be installed as proposed on the appended plan. All lighting shall be cast down to eliminate night light pollution to neighbors. Said lighting needs to be coordinated to match outdoor lighting design of the rest of Tattersall in accordance with the plan unit development. Number 4, the animal waste in the outdoor play area shall not leach into the soil and groundwater. The owner shall implement an underground storage waste treatment program approved to form and function by the city engineer to handle the pet waste for the outdoor play area. Number 5, the dumpster shall have a roof over the enclosure, and that is, of course, to help keep any of that waste from getting into the storm sewer. Number 6, dumpsters should be serviced and an adequate number of times per week in order to prevent odor. Number 7, CMU and concrete block walls are not included as a permitted exterior wall design for the Tattersall PUD. Concrete block exterior walls must be split-faced if utilized. Number 8, maximum occupancy of animals is 175. Number 9, the maximum number of dogs outside at any given time is 75. I believe Mr. Beavers is here representing the case, and I do believe they have an updated exhibit for the external appearance of the facility.
Thank you, Mr. Martin. Mr. Beavers?
Good evening, Council President, council members, and Mr. Mayor. Charlie Beavers here on behalf of the applicant. Actually, I think we presented the elevations and the exteriors last time. That was different from what had been presented at Planning Commission. The exhibit that we were asked to provide, and which has been submitted, if it can be brought up, is a section which shows the distance between the Pet Paradise development and the closest house on the ridge, and which shows the elevation difference. There it is, if we can flip it around. And as they're working on that, the distance between the Pet Paradise building and the nearest home on the ridge is 815 feet, more or less, over 800 feet. The elevation difference is that on the ridge is 102 feet higher than the elevation of the development. And if you can see, I'm sorry it's sideways there, there's the significant portion of the distance of 800 feet between the two is on the hillside. It's in a natural area thick with trees. It's in an area that's committed to that and will not change. And of course, you have the detention pond between that tree area and the elevation area and the Pet Paradise as well. So it's a significant distance from the development. The development itself is located in a retail commercial area, dense, with a lot of activity. We think that this makes a perfect use for this particular piece of property, very high end. It'll be upward of $6 million in investment. That's the only thing different or in addition to what we presented before. We're happy to answer any questions you might have.
Any questions or comments for Mr. Beavers or Mr. Martin?
Mr. President, I have one.
Shaw.
Did we decide on what the exterior or the fence material was going to be? I know we talked at the first reading about it being really anything, but did we ever finalize if that was going to be brick or did the city have any thoughts on that?
As far as the city is concerned, going through this process, our primary concern was that the fence be non-pervious, at least as far as the ability to see through it. We wanted the wall to be completely opaque. Now, whether or not it's brick or it's wood or some other material, that is up to the council's discretion. But our primary focus was that it would be opaque and that it would actually screen what was behind it.
Right. Yeah, and given the additional talk, we can't make this a condition, but since y'all are open to doing any material, I would think that brick would be better for noise abatement and things like that. Wouldn't brick be better for that?
I would say so.
Okay, so Mr. Beavers, is brick a good material for this?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Our folks have been willing to make it any kind of material that the city wants, and brick is acceptable.
Like I said, I don't think we can make that a requirement at this point, but I think moving forward, it's understood that the material needs to be whatever's best for noise abatement, if, in the outdoor sections there.
Yes, sir. We'll make it on the public record, the commitment that it is brick. I've gotten the thumbs up from my folks from Pet Paradise.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Other questions or comments from the members? Continue the public hearing. We'll open it up to questions or comments from members of the public. Yes, ma'am, come on down. Please give us your name and address if you would, and appreciate you being with us.
Okay, my name is Connie DeVoe. My address is 1117 Berwick Road. Hello, thank you for allowing me to address this issue today. I attended the zoning meeting on May 10th, which that's the first I had really learned of the plans to build this facility behind my house. I'm not sure why I wasn't here. I didn't know about the first hearing, so maybe y'all can explain that to me. But anyway, I attended that meeting to learn what the proposal was. So I was quite taken aback when I heard that they had already, talked about it, and they said they had no questions or concerns from the residents. Well, that really surprised me because I had not even known about it to, have any questions presented. But as I said at that meeting, at that time in the meeting, the zoning meeting, they were talking about 500 feet versus 800 and something. So even if that's changed, my notes are based on what I heard in that meeting. So I just don't think that's sufficient. We've been able to hear from the residents. We live in a community where there's a lot of elderly people. People who had surgery this past week and aren't able to be here. I think there would be more people here if, we lived in a younger community. So I'm here to try to voice concerns for other residents, I'm sure. I stated that even though I'm a very big animal lover, I protested the boarding facility being built that close to my home because of my concern over the noise issues. And at the meeting, since it was the first time I'd heard of this, I did a quick Google search on my phone to see, the decibel levels of dogs. The barking can be 80 to 90 decibels, but some dogs can reach 100 to 115. And in the kennel type situation, they can go between 95 to 125 due to the acoustic nature of the architecture, which can cause, hearing damage to people. So if they're outside, I'm sure a bunch of barking dogs is going to be traveling up the hill. I did do the research, and it said that dog barks could travel 1 to 2 miles, which is much further than what they're now saying is 800 feet distance between the facility and the first house. And as a reminder, 1 mile is 5,280 feet. So that's significantly more than 800 feet that a dog bark can travel. And since then, I've done even some more research regarding complaints of dog barks being heard, like from hunting clubs where the homes are half a mile away, beagles chasing deer, and even with thick woods in between. So they do travel, even though we have some terrain there that you say that it wouldn't. I think it will. Other reports of people living in subdivisions that back up to a home with at least 600 feet and all kinds of cedar and live oaks in between with only 2 dogs, it keeps them up at night. So anyway, I just want to report that I don't necessarily believe that we won't be able to hear the dogs coming up the hill. At the last meeting, I don't know where the 75 dogs outside came from, because at the zoning meeting, they said it would be no more than 25 dogs. And after the meeting and some of the stuff I learned in the meeting, I realized I had other questions. Because there was a little bit of confusion. They were talking about the dogs would not be out, they would be like, at first they were talking about from dusk to dawn. And so they wanted to change that to a time period, which now they're saying 6:30 to 7. And they were asked about the dogs. Apparently they do have in their little cubby hole or whatever it is, they can go in and out. And so I don't know if the 75 dogs now that they're saying is like a playtime period where they put a bunch of dogs together, that's what they're saying. But if the dogs can go in and out of their little facility and they can have 150 dogs at the maximum at one time, there could be a lot of dogs barking outside at any given period. And in the meeting, we asked about the changing to the time period, and someone asked, so can you shut the dogs off from going outside? And they said, no, not until business hours close. Well, if business hours are a certain time period, how can you follow along with dusk to dawn, which was what the initial proposal was, and now they're saying 6:30 to 7 p.m. So I would like that to be clarified on what that means and how, what dogs can come in and out and how many could actually be out at one time versus what it's saying is 75, if they are allowed access to come and go as they please into their little area. And then, let's see if there's anything else. The other thing, someone asked at the meeting, because I know they said that when they're inside that you will not be able to hear them. And someone got up and asked, is that guaranteed? And they were not able to guarantee that. So if they can't guarantee that, then that's telling me that that's probably just something to get them in there, and then we're stuck with hearing the noise, And also at that meeting, I mentioned that I do work from home, and I am outside on pretty days on my screen and porch. So it is not just a nighttime noise issue that I was concerned about. And all like I said, the elderly people, they are outside during the day, not at night. So I think that's all I had to say, but thank you.
Thank you, Ms. DeVoe. I think I've got your questions right, but bear with me to make sure I've got them right.
Okay.
Mr. Beavers or Mr. Martin, can one of you please address the 75 dog number and how that was derived and really what that means?
Yes, sir. That would be all dogs, whether it's out on a patio or in a play area or any means outside. And most of the bulk of the play areas within the confines of the facility itself. It's open air, but it's behind the walls and behind buildings and the like, most of them. So the access to the patios for those of the suites that have access to patios, those are not just left open all day where they can come in and go in and out as they please. Those are used when the rooms are being cleansed, and they open that up so the dog can go outside and they clean the room. Or they're used for a potty break at feeding. They have a handful of employees that deal with that, so they just let a few of them out at a time. They're not in and out all day. They're not just sitting out there unattended. The 75 applies to all the play areas, as well as any that might be out for any particular reason that I just mentioned into the patios. The play areas are limited to from 10 to 20 dogs in each play area. Those play areas are segregated. Up to 10 dogs have one playtime coordinator that keeps them engaged and active. Up to 20 dogs in one group has at least two. If it's over 10, they have at least two playtime coordinators. So the dogs aren't just sitting out there unengaged. They engage them throughout the day, and those playtimes exist last for 20 to 30 minutes, and they're put back up, and another group can come in. As a rule, the numbers of dogs that the facility will handle is really at the peak time in certain vacation areas, or vacation times. The actual occupancy is much less during normal times. That's a maximum that you can be, but we put a maximum, they put a maximum of 75 that would be outside for any reason, for any purpose, at any one time. And no dogs are allowed in those evening hours out at all. They're all inside.
I think you helped answer that last question. So the hours between 6:30 a.m. and 7 p.m., so no dogs are allowed outside. I think her question was specifically about a doggy door, if you will,
Right.
that would allow them to go out after 7. Is that,
No.
or is that not the case?
That's not the case. Those doors are shut, and that restriction would apply to any means of access to the outside, including those. And the sundown to sun-up to sundown kind of thing was in discussion with the planning commission. It was deemed to be that changes so much. What is that? And the idea was, let's get something specific. And those times for outside play area or outside ability to go outside for any fashion or another is based on when patrons drop the dogs off and when they pick them up and have time for potty breaks and whatnot before they put them in for the night.
Very good. Thank you. Mr.
Thank
Bowe, did that get your questions, the 2 questions answered?
Well, I think I'm just still a little confused based on what was said at the last meeting versus this, because they said they wouldn't shut the doors and keep them inside during business hours. And so if you have a capacity for 150 dogs, because I was told the other 25 are cats, then, how many of those facilities do have the door where they can go into their little, it's confined, I guess, but it is an outdoor area. And I don't know, can they see each other? Will they be able to see other dogs and start barking at each other? And that was, I guess, my concern. And why did it jump from 25 to 75? Like, what caused that increase?
Mr. President. So, and Mr. Bowe, in answer to your question, we had the very same question after the last meeting was, yeah, the original restriction of the 25 was for the indoor playtime. My concern was these outdoor kennels. Well,
Okay.
what about those? And so, in talking with Mr. Beavers, there was a lot of discussion about this. That's when we found out that these doors to the external kennels are not open all the time. They're only used pretty much as a shortcut to somebody having to walk the dog while they're cleaning the kennel. Mr. Beavers, is that correct?
Yes.
Right. But there was a concern that, well, what if they did leave them all open? So the taking that to 75 was a way of keeping that controlled to where they don't just open all the doors all at once and make sure they're doing what they say they're going to do, which is only opening the doors, those external doors, for limited times for potty breaks for the dogs.
So the time period of when it's open, if it's past the time for the dogs to be inside, is that when it's going to be shut down? Because I think the question was specifically asked if they could close the doors, before closing time, and they said no, it would be tied to that. So this was in the zoning meeting.
I don't recall that, but I'm here to report. My folks are here to confirm that at night the doors are shut down completely and dogs are not allowed out in those times, period. No dogs allowed outside of the facility for any reason, and that's what that restriction says.
Which is now a condition of the application, Ms. DeVoe. So that is in the application and in the request.
It would be a part of the ordinance.
Correct.
The reason it was added was because there was some ambiguity there and misunderstanding, so it was added to make sure that question was answered.
I'm not sure where that came from, but that was a misunderstanding. But that's the commitment, and that's what would be in the ordinance with that limitation.
And what about the guarantee for not hearing the dogs when they're inside at night? Is that something we can get on the record?
I don't know how you guarantee anything. Our folks' experience is that, and they have facilities that are much closer to residential than this would be, this 800-foot distance, and they don't experience complaints. This is a heavily soundproofed structure. It has a foot of foam insulation on top of the insulated block that's in the development in the roofing. And all these dogs are inside at night, all night. They're not allowed out at all.
Mr. President, if I could ask the city, have we heard any, the Pet Suites, which is across town, that's an all-indoor facility, and that's 50 to 80 feet away from other residences, like right there. Ms. Rice, have we heard any, how is that, it's only been open a few months, I think, but how has that been doing?
Yes, sir. Mr. Shaw, you'll recall from when that came through, the similar process, that facility is built so close to residents that their back decks overlook the roof line of that particular building. we've not had any complaints to my knowledge. Mac or Robert, have you dealt with any barking complaints there? That's an all-enclosed facility, so those animals are not allowed out at any time. So any barking would be interior, but we've not had any barking. And there are people that, when they sit on their back deck at night, they're looking at the top of the roof of that facility.
And just, Mr. President, just to show you what a geek I am, I actually went over and parked in that parking lot for about 15 minutes to see if I could hear a dog.
No, we
So-
did get a complaint about that. No.
I'll tell you, it's something suspicious, council member hanging out, casing a dog joint. So, Ms. DeVoe, all that's to say is that, I don't think anybody up here is in the business of wanting to create nuisances with our votes, and so we take it very seriously. So with the guarantees in life, people would hesitate to say that word, but I think with our experience with the other pet suites and in calling other facilities around the nation, the indoor section is pretty, it's pretty hard to conceive that there would be outdoor barking being heard outside that facility, the indoor portion. Our primary concern and follow-up was on the external, the dogs being outside, because obviously there's nothing in between. And that's also why I mentioned the brick, to make sure we have solid surfaces out there to keep, so it's not a pervious wood thing or something like that, so.
Mr. President, if I may.
Yes, sir.
Man, I just wanted to try to allay your concerns a little bit when you spoke on hunting dogs and sound traveling over a mile. The braying of hunting dogs is very different than normal barking. Braying you can hear, and it travels miles through the woods. So I don't think you would get that kind of sound through just this kind of use at all. So I just wanted to, try to allay some of your concerns there.
Thank you, Ms. DeVoe.
Thank you.
Any other members of the public? Yes, sir. Mr. Leopard, if you could share your name and address with us. Happy to have you here.
My name is Noah Leopard, and I live at 1147 Berwick Road. And my house is directly above the proposed plan. And I've heard rumors about it. And my neighbors, I have a neighbor that's a young nurse. She says she couldn't be here tonight to voice her concerns. But our main concern is noise. And the park as it's being developed, it's not a lot of noise right now. In the winter, in the springtime, the trees muffle a lot of that noise. But in the wintertime, you can look down, you can see everything hardly. So my concern is they need to consider that. And my neighbor next door, I think he's 75, and I'm 84. And there's a lot of my neighbors my age, they've sold their houses and they moved out. It's a transition, but I'm concerned about the park. I'm concerned about noise. I have a dog, and he's very well protected, and he's a good dog. He doesn't bark. I don't let him bark. And so that's my main concern, that you are listening to what's being voiced by this lady. It's a concern. We've had other concerns that I've addressed to the council before, about several years ago. I used to work for EBSCO. I retired in 2003. And Mr. Stevenson is a very honorable man, and he will listen to what you have to say. But it's a concern of most of the residents that I've talked with. And we need some verification. This is a guarantee of dogs, that's not going to happen. You need to really consider something that how many dogs and the gates being shut, that needs to be disciplined very well. Now, I've been down to Riverview kennels with my dog, and you can't hear those dogs. They got some kind of a system that you can't hear them. Even at Chick-fil-A there, you can't even hear them. But other sites, you can hear them. So I just pray that y'all as a council member, y'all will understand my concern. And at 84 years old, I can still get around. I sit out in the backyard, and I enjoy my backyard view, but I got that lake down there. So PepsiCo's a good company, and I know they want to do right. And I pray that y'all will do right as well. And so that's my concern. And I appreciate this lady sharing her concerns as well. And thank you for hearing me. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Mr. Leopard. Do you have something to say? The gentleman back here, did you have an opportunity? Did you want to say something, sir? No, I guess not. Mr. DeVoe, you want another bite at the apple? Okay.
So, I mean, I know we're all concerned about Berwick Road, but what about the assisted living facility that's directly across the road from this pet grooming? I mean, are they part of Hoover? Are they going to be considered? Because they have no barrier, they have no trees at all. They're right there, and they're very, very close. So, has anyone looked at the distance between that facility? There's people with balconies, and obviously elderly people, because it's assisted living. So that would be my question. Were they notified about this meeting? They probably can't show up.
By state law, all property owners within 500 feet are notified with a mail notice. So they would, if they were within that 500 feet, they would have certainly received a notice.
Okay, so like if they're under, like I said, this is an assisted living facility, I believe. So who would be representing them? I'm just curious. I don't think they can drive over here.
I would be guessing if I tried to answer that question. I'm not sure.
I mean, it's just something I want everyone to consider, that we're not the only residents that I think needs to be considered.
Sure.
In this. And it probably affect them even more. But.
Thank you.
Mr. President, if I could chime in on that, as I want to do. Mr. Leopard and Mr. DeVoe, thank you for being here. I mean, I completely understand the concern, and if we had another vote with a similar facility, I guess about a year and a half ago, when the pet suites we were talking about, and I don't know if anybody saw that, we actually voted that down, and it had to be fixed because of these concerns. And we kind of learned our lesson with that, and we tried to put as many questions up front, I think. One of the things I did, and again, because we're very serious, nobody wants to create noise issues with what we're doing. I actually called a retirement community very similar in another pet paradise in another location, and asked them. Like I said, I call these places, and it's the weirdest call ever, but after a couple minutes of talking, we actually get some pretty good input from them. And I was not able to find, in the first case with the pet suites, I was able to find, and of course the locations were a lot closer in this case, we were able to find lots of different locations that had a lot of issues with them, and that's what really led to our concerns then. Of all the places I've called, and I actually called city governments too this time, I was not able to find anyone who had any history of complaints or ongoing issues, but I did, one of the two of the entities I called, one was a retirement community that's very similar to this, same distance and everything, and also a daycare facility, because there's a daycare right close by to this, and I wasn't able to find anybody who had ongoing complaints, or really even one complaint about these type facilities that they're building. So we try to do our homework on these things, which is, again, can't guarantee, like there's no such thing, but we do hear what your concerns are, and I don't think any of us up here on the council want to create a situation where we have to go back and go, oh, we should have thought of that. So we've done a lot of checking on the very kind of circumstances you talked about to do our best to figure it out.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Shaw. Yes, sir.
My name is Jimmy Fallon, and I live 1174 Berwick Road, and my partner and I do about 75 lawns in that on Berwick Road. And one thing that people haven't thought about is the increase in traffic that's going to happen because of this facility. The Berwick Road is a cutoff. You come in the back way, Greystone Way, and all the people live back there that go to school, they race through that neighborhood 60 to 70 miles an hour. And I've almost got killed 10 times. The other thing is I have an uncle who owned a pet place, and he said they bark. And I want to know, everybody else here, would you want that place in your backyard? I think you would say no. They need to put that place somewhere else where there's no residents behind them. And Southernby, that retirement center, is also fairly close to that place. And that wouldn't be a very good place for that to be. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any other questions or comments from members of the public? Yes, sir.
Name is Alex Irwin. I'm at 1247 Berwick Road, probably at the far end of the 500-foot boundary on this thing, if it's even affected. But Mr. Fallon brought up a good point that I had not thought about before, was the traffic, because our neighborhood is a cut-through for people. And we've noticed an increase in traffic since the property's been developed, because they come out. It's hard to get out at any of the other entrances to access Highway 280. So what they do is they come up the hill, come through. My pet peeve is people don't stop at the stop signs, and I've dealt with that with the police department. And the speeding is, you would be surprised. When he said 70 miles an hour, he's not kidding. So there's a little narrow street that we've got people flying through there. So that's another concern of mine. And I'm even, I'm down at the cul-de-sac at the far end, but it's just noticing that the traffic has increased over the years because of this. So concerns about the noise, to her point, is a lot of people work from their homes, and in the wintertime, the air is pretty dry. The sound travels quite a bit. So having 75 dogs outside at one time, it seems a little bit excessive to me. To allow that many out at one time. But the fact that they've got that is proposed that they're going to have an on-site caretaker, is that correct? That's the only thing that kind of gives me solace, because unless that person's deaf, he's going to try to do something about the dogs barking. So I'm kind of holding on to that too. So, but anyway, again, just the consideration for the traffic is as much concern for me as anything. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Urban. Yes, sir.
Hello, I'm Joe Myhan, 1222 Berwick Road, and they stole all my thunder. I just wanted to agree with everything they said, especially the noise.
Very good. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments from the public? Any follow-up? Yes, sir.
One more thing.
Okay.
I think it might be a good idea for the association to petition EBSCO to cul-de-sac, not to cul-de-sac, but to gate our community, help us gate our community. That would stop a lot of problems, because the more development they have in Tattersall Park, the more traffic we're going to have. It's going to be, you should be there between 4 and 6:30 in the afternoon and in the morning. As a matter of fact, I have taken my wife's hair dryer and sat in the back of my truck and pointed at people, and they go, ooh. I'm telling you, it's a serious problem. And the more development we have, the more traffic. And I think what we're going to do, I'm on the board, is get with the board and visit EBSCO and see what they would help us gate the community. Because this just traffic is going to cause our values of our homes go down, period. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Any follow-up questions from members of the body? Hearing and seeing none, we have a motion and a second for approval of the resolution. We will close the public hearing, and I will call for a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. Ayes have it, and the motion carries. Item number 21 is ordinance 21-2532. Mr. Corley.
This ordinance amends Article 7 of the zoning ordinance of the City of Hoover relating to conditional uses within PRD or Planned Residential District.
Mr. President, I move for adoption of ordinance number 21-2532.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. We will have our final public hearing of the evening. We will open the public hearing and ask any members of the body if they have any questions on this item. Mr. Martin, before we do that, remind us, please, this item's rather vague. Remind us, please, from the first reading what this is.
Yes, Mr. President, this would amend the zoning ordinance to permit as a conditional use within a PRD planned residential district, the opportunity for community buildings to be located within that planned, master planned community. PRD is kind of the first cousin to our PUDs, planned unit developments. Those as well are master planned communities, and amenity buildings, community buildings are also permitted with conditional use in our planned unit developments as well. So this would be in sync with our PUD policy.
Very good. Any questions for Mr. Martin on this item from the body? Hearing none. Any questions from members of the public on this item? Hearing and seeing none, we will close the public hearing. We have a motion and a second for adoption of the ordinance. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. Posey?
Aye.
Mr. Sweeney?
Aye.
Mr. Shaw?
Aye.
Mr. Murphy?
Aye.
Dr. Middlebrooks?
Aye.
Mr. McClinton?
Aye.
Mr. Lyda?
Aye. 7 ayes, 0 nays. The motion carries and the ordinance is adopted. We'll now move to some first readings where we'll hear the item tonight and then come together at our first meeting in July on July 16th or 6th for a possible vote. Item number 22 is ordinance 212535. Mr. Corley.
This ordinance annexes the property located at 2560 Wood Meadow Lane, Hoover, Alabama, as more particularly described on the ordinance, owned by Limited Resources LLC to the City of Hoover.
And item number 23 is first reading of ordinance number 21-2534. Mr. Corley.
This ordinance amends Article 4 of the Municipal Code and grants a non-exclusive franchise to Telepac Networks, Inc., and authorizes Mayor Brocato to execute a franchise agreement related thereto.
Thank you, sir. That brings us to the end of our regular agenda. Now I ask the members of the body if they have any questions or general comments for the evening.
Mr. President?
Yes, sir.
I would just thank the city. We know we've been, several of us, including Dr. Middlebrooks, have been working on this train issue and with CSX, and it's taken really 2 years. I looked back at some of the things, and we finally got it worked out, but once we knew what we needed to do, the city jumped right on it, got the signage we needed and everything, so that's made a big difference to a lot of folks out in Lake Cyrus. I think Steve's actually getting some sleep now out in Lake Cyrus. So, but anyway, thank you to the city staff for jumping on that so quick, because that's really made a big difference to a lot of folks.
Thank you, Mr. Shaw. Any other questions or comments from the body? I'd like to recognize former Councilman Joe Reeves. Councilman Reeves, always a pleasure to have you back in the chamber. Very good to see you. Any questions or comments from members of the public? Hearing and seeing none, we're adjourned.